My name's James Daley, and this is my testimony. I was born in 1977 to a single mom in Beaumont, Texas. My mom was great. I had a pretty decent childhood. My grandmother and my mom raised me with my stepdad. My relationship with my stepdad was not the best, to say the least, growing up. But I'll get to that later. I was born in Beaumont, Texas. Grew up in Vidor, Texas till I was about 10. Then I moved to Virginia for a year. And then after that, I moved to Austin, Texas. And that's where I grew up. Austin's my hometown. Growing up in Austin was kind of crazy. I grew up in the nightclub scene and the rave scene in the early 90s and late 90s, where drugs were not just permissible, they were completely the norm. I started doing cocaine when I was like 11 years old. I started smoking pot when I was 8 or 9, picking up roaches out of the ashtray. I quickly progressed to ecstasy and LSD, and growing up in the nightclub scene in Austin, Texas was it was kind of like Alice in Wonderland. It was every single day going down the rabbit hole. And so for me, my addiction, it was more of a lifestyle than an addiction to begin with, because it's all I knew. Everybody I knew was on drugs. Everybody, everywhere I went was on drugs. Drugs were a centerpiece of any event or party or anything that I was doing. Drugs were at the center. I did heroin for my first time when I was 14, and that was the beginning of a bad downward spiral. I loved it. I didn't get sick. I didn't throw up. It was fantastic. And I wish that I would have got sick, thrown up, and had a horrible time, but it was great. So I fell in love with heroin when I was 14 years old, and continued on and off a heroin addiction for 35 years. Heroin took me to some really, really, really bad places, some really low places. When I was 17, my best friend died from a heroin overdose, and I was destroyed. I was shattered. Everything that I knew was just destroyed, and I felt like I died with her. So then that just sent me into an even worse track of addiction than I was on beforehand, because I didn't know how to cope with her loss. Didn't know how to cope with my grief. I didn't have, the only coping skill I knew was to do more drugs, and that went on for years, until just a little while ago, as a matter of fact. But when I got a new best friend named Becca, and she was my world. She was my other half. She was fantastic, and she died when we were both 27. She joined the 27 Club, and my world was destroyed again, and it just sent me into a straight downward slope of addiction and grieving and loss. And I ended up moving from Austin to Denver, Colorado, where I thought everything was going to be better. And it was better for about a week and a half, and then I found where the Hondurans were selling heroin, And that sent my life into a tailspin where I was homeless. I was addicted to heroin, and all I did all day was panhandle enough money to get well, because I was so addicted to heroin. I had to do like a 16th to an 8 ball of black tar heroin every day just to not be sick. And that went on for about a year. It was horrible. My mom came and got me from Vidor, Texas. We drove back down. I was miserable. And that's when I went to treatment for my first time at Franklin House South in Beaumont, Texas. And I was sober for about 5 months, and I decided, well, I can drink. I mean, it's not heroin. So alcohol came into play big time in my life, and I started drinking like a fish all day. I would go to work waiting tables at Castle Ole, and then the second I would get off, I'd go across the street to Applebee's and sit at the bar until the bar closed just about every night. And that just led me back into cocaine, because I would get drunk and I'd get sleepy and I'd need something to keep me up. So I would do some more cocaine. That lifestyle was miserable, to say the least. It was defeating. Those years were just a blur. I have years of my life that are just a blur. I ended up getting on Suboxone, and I was on Suboxone for 2 years on the patient assistance program. And when the patient assistant program ran out, the Suboxone was like $700 or $800 a month, and I couldn't afford it. So I moved back to Austin and got back on heroin to get off the Suboxone, because the withdrawals were so intense, and it just never. I felt like I was constantly in withdrawal for months and months, and to alleviate that, I went and got back on heroin, and then I got off heroin, and I got on heroin, and I got off heroin, and that's kind of been the story of my life up until about 20 months ago. I got off heroin again, and I traded heroin for methamphetamines. And methamphetamine was a whole new monster for me, because I was used to a different kind of lifestyle. I wasn't used to being up and going for days at a time, and then sleep for a couple hours and get up and go for days at a time. It was really, really hard on me. I ended up overdosing on fentanyl when I was down in Vidor, and I died. I was dead for like half an hour, and I came back to life. And when I came back to life, I said, I'm done with this. I need to change. I need some positive change in my life, or I should have just stayed dead. So I decided I was going to go to Synacor in Houston, and I went to Synacor for detox and was going to stay for their treatment program. But after the 11 days of detox was over, they said they didn't have a bed for me. So I was like, I'm trying, you guys. I'm doing what I can. And so they took me and they dropped me off at the doorstep at the Wheelhouse. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard about the Wheelhouse, but it is big book boot camp, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's hardcore. No TV, no radio, no internet, no newspapers, no magazines. It's big book all day, every day. And you have to keep the book open all day, every day. The only positive thing about the Wheelhouse was, at the time I smoked cigarettes, and you could smoke at the Wheelhouse. But I went to the Wheelhouse. I did their program. I graduated the 30-day program, went to their transition program, and about 2 weeks into that, I got kicked out because of some kratom deal. I got kicked out, and I didn't know where to go from there. I went to the 24-hour club over here off of Harrisburg in Houston, and I stayed there for about a week. And while I was there, they had a paper up on the wall for Sober Living America, and I decided to give them a call. They came and got me, and I went to Sober Living America for a couple months, and it was pretty good. It was actually pretty good. The people there were really nice. I got a job. I got a job working at Pokeworks in Rice Village, and as a shift leader, and I worked at Pokeworks up until April of 2023, when I had decided to. I went from the Sober Living America to go stay with a friend for a little while, and then I ended up going to the Recenter, and the Recenter was really good for me because they gave me an apartment, but my apartment was shared with this other guy, and he was the worst roommate I've ever had in my life. The worst roommate I've ever had in my life. So I ended up getting a pad split, a room that I rented, and the house was cool. The room was cool. Had Wi-Fi, washer and dryer, microwave, full kitchen, everything. But it was super far from my job, and I'd have to take 3 buses and the train to get to and from work, or either it's like $20 or $25 for Uber each way, and that was eating me up. I couldn't handle financially paying rent and paying $150, $200 a week for an Uber. So I ended up relapsing while I was at the pad split. I had been sober for almost a year. I ended up relapsing when I was at pad split, and I started smoking meth again, and I just went downhill super fast. It was like instantly. One day I was working, and it seemed like the next day I was without a job. I was homeless again. Ended up on Highway 6 at the motels on Highway 6 and I-10 at the Oyo Motel, smoking meth, stealing every day. I would go to Walgreens, 4, 5, 6 Walgreens a day, CVS, and I would steal Pokemon cards because I had a guy at a comic book shop that would give me $2 a piece for every pack of Pokemon cards I could steal. So I would go into Hobby Lobby or anywhere I could go in and just grab all the Pokemon cards I could grab, and I would go sell them and make anywhere from $60 to $200 a day just doing that. And that supported my habit for a while because I moved in with my drug dealer, and I was living with and hanging out with some really bad people at the time. They were not good for me. They were just not good people. And this whole time, I did not have God in my life whatsoever. I never had God in my life from growing up. I was Buddhist for 10 years. I was pagan for 20 years. And I had no way to fill that hole inside of me except for drugs. And on October 18th of 2023, I made a really bad decision and broke into somebody's garage to get a phone charger because my phone was dead, and I wanted to Uber back to the house. And the Xanax and the meth I was on said, "Sure, just go ahead in there and take it. You're fine." Well, the guy came out whose house it was, and I fought with him, and the police came, and I went to jail for aggravated robbery. I spent 5 months in Harris County, but while I was in Harris County, I picked up the Bible. I started reading the Bible every day. I read Purpose Driven Life. I read all the inspirational books I could read, and I got saved while I was in jail. And I know that's kind of a common story, but it really happened. I felt God's presence. I felt peace. Everything was good, except I was in jail. They lowered my sentence to burglary or habitation and gave me 5 years of probation. on Valentine's Day of 2024. And then I went to the DDRP, the Dual Diagnosis Residential Program from Harris County in Atascocita. I went there for 5 months, and that place was pretty good for me. It was super boring, but it taught me how to sit still and to be still and not to just go, 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 which had been my lifestyle before I had went to jail. I really liked my counselor there. She was great. She was really, really, really good. She was for me. She gave me some clothes and stuff because all I had was my scrubs for the DDRP. That was a 5-month program, and at the end of 5 months, since I was on probation, they couldn't just let me out on the street and go do what you want to do. I had to choose a place to go to live, and it wasn't directly mandated by my probation that I go to Open Door Mission, but I had to go somewhere. So I was actually going to go to this place called Lieutenant's House, where they give you a job, you work, and then you pay rent there. But since the hurricane had happened, one of the houses was closed down and they didn't have any beds. So I ended up deciding I would come to Open Door Mission. Open Door Mission has been fantastic. It was a 5-month program. I came in August of last year. I graduated in January of this year, and I'm now in the transition program here. The staff is phenomenal. The facility, it's an old facility. So the building's like 100 years old, but it's really kept up. They do a really good job here. Education was fantastic. I finished my North Star in about a week and a half, and that's a computer literacy program. And after that, in the education here, I took typing. I did typing class, and I took Spanish on Duolingo, and that was pretty cool too. Since graduating, life has been really, really good. I got a job at the rodeo. I worked at the rodeo for the whole time that the rodeo was here in Texas, in Houston, for about a month. And the day after the rodeo was over, I started the Good Works program, and Good Works Collective is amazing. It's fantastic. They do 6 weeks of personal development classes where we learn to get in touch with our story, where we gain the confidence to do well in an interview, to fill out an application, because some people just don't know how to properly do that. They teach you everything that you need to know to get a job, and then they pay for your certification for whatever field you want to go into. Say if you want to be a CNA, if you want to be an electrician. And for me, I've always loved being in the kitchen, so they're paying for me to get my professional cook certification from Ruby online, and it's really fantastic. I graduate that in September of this year, and hopefully by then I'll be working full-time in a kitchen somewhere, feeding people and making people happy, because that's what I really like to do. So I've been sober since October 17th, 2023, and this chapter of my life has been the best chapter of my life that I've ever had, and that's all because of God. 100% because of God, because I surrendered to God. I gave myself to God. I gave my problems to God. I gave my victories to God. I gave my failures to God, and it's all in God's hands now, and He has a plan for us. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have had a totally different answer, but now my answer to everything is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I hope that my testimony helps somebody out there. to give somebody a little bit of hope that things can change, things can get better, coming from below rock bottom, coming from under the bridge to a place where I'm happy when I wake up every morning. I get up, I go to school, I work in the kitchen here at Open Door Mission. I have a really bright outlook on my future, and that's all thanks to God and the Open Door Mission. Thank you.